The world's richest man was about to discover that some secrets are worth more than all the money on Earth or Mars. Elon Musk had conquered electric cars, reached for the stars, and changed how humanity thought about the future. But on this March evening in Austin, sitting alone in his Cybertruck outside a quiet restaurant, he was just a lonely billionaire who couldn't remember the last time he'd done something purely for joy. His assistant had set up the blind date against his better judgment. She specifically asked that you know nothing about her, Jenna had said with that mysterious smile. She wants to meet the real you, not the headlines. What Elon didn't know was that the woman walking toward that restaurant carried a secret that would rewrite everything he thought he knew about his life. A secret with brilliant dark eyes, a passion for space exploration, and a 15-year-old heart that had been reaching for the same stars her father was building rockets to reach. Some blind dates end with awkward goodbyes. This one would end with Elon discovering he wasn't just changing the world, he was building it for a daughter he never knew existed. Austin, Texas, March. Elon Musk sat in his silver Tesla Cybertruck outside Uchi restaurant in Austin. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than they should. The world's richest man was nervous about a dinner date, which felt ridiculous even to him. He checked his phone again. 6:55 p.m. 5 minutes early, just like his mom taught him back in South Africa. Some habits never die, even when you're worth over $200 billion. The restaurant buzzed with Friday night energy. Through the large windows, he could see couples sharing sushi, families celebrating, business people closing deals. Normal life, something that felt as foreign to him as Mars itself. His assistant Jenna had been pushing this for months. "You work too much, Elon," she'd said last week, standing in his office at the Gigafactory with that determined look. "When's the last time you went on a real date? Not some tech conference dinner or investor meeting disguised as romance." She was right, though he hated admitting it. Between running Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and XX, his personal life had become a series of business meetings. His last real relationship had crashed and burned 2 years ago, splashed across every gossip site and newspaper. The loneliness was starting to eat at him, especially during those 3 a.m. nights when he wandered the empty Tesla factory floors, checking on robot assembly lines. "I have someone perfect for you," Jenna had announced with that knowing smile that made him nervous. "She's brilliant, kind, and she asked me specifically not to tell you anything about her beforehand. She wants to meet the real you, not the headlines." That should have been his first clue something was different about this woman. Now sitting in the truck, Elon wondered if this was a massive mistake. What if she was a reporter fishing for a story? What if this was some setup by competitors or internet trolls? Trust didn't come easily when every conversation could end up as a tweet or a tabloid headline. The reservation was under Smith, generic enough to avoid attention from other diners or staff who might mackin's him. Uchi had been chosen because it was upscale but not flashy, and the private corner booths offered the kind of privacy he rarely found anymore. Elon had eaten here twice before when Tesla first moved operations to Austin. The owner, a quiet Japanese-American man named Kenji, had promised to keep tonight's dinner completely private. A tap on his window made him jump. A valet approached with a polite smile. "Evening, sir. Dining at Uchi tonight?" "Yes, thank you." Elon climbed out, handed over his keys, and took a deep breath of the warm Texas evening air. March in Austin was perfect. Not too hot, not too cold, with that hint of spring that made everything feel possible. As he walked toward the entrance, his mind raced through possibilities about his mystery date. Jenna had been annoyingly secretive, only saying the woman was someone who understands what it's like to change the world, and that she'd be wearing a simple black dress with a silver bracelet. Who could possibly understand his unique position? Another CEO? A scientist? An artist? Someone from old money who grew up with pressure? The possibilities felt endless and terrifying. The hostess, a young woman with kind eyes and a professional smile, greeted him at the door. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" "Smith. Party of 2. She checked her tablet. "Perfect. Right this way, Mr. Smith." The slight pause told him she recognized him but was being discreet. Good. That's why he chose places like this. She led him through the busy restaurant to a corner booth that offered privacy from other diners. The lighting was soft, the atmosphere warm and intimate without being over the top. Perfect for a first date, assuming this went well enough to call it that. Your table, sir. Can I start you with anything to drink while you wait? Just water for now. Thank you. Elon slid into the booth and immediately began people watching, a habit from childhood that had never left him. At the table next to him, a young couple shared California rolls and gazed at each other like they were the only people in the world. Across the room, a family with 2 small children tried to keep everyone happy while enjoying their dinner. Near the bar, 2 men in suits discussed what sounded like a real estate deal. Normal people living normal lives. When was the last time he'd done something this ordinary? Gone on a date where the other person didn't already know everything about him from Google searches and magazine articles? His phone buzzed with a text from his brother Kimball. How's the big date going? Hasn't started yet. She's not here. Nervous? Elon stared at the question. Was he nervous? When was the last time he'd felt nervous about anything other than rocket launches or quarterly earnings calls? Yeah, actually, weird, right? Not weird at all. Means you care. Did he care? About a woman he'd never met? Maybe it wasn't about her specifically. Maybe it was about the idea of her. The possibility of connection with someone who might see him as more than a walking business empire. At exactly 7:00 p.m., she walked in. Elon's breath caught in his throat. Not because she was traditionally beautiful in the Instagram model way he'd gotten used to dating, but because there was something magnetic about her confidence. She moved through the restaurant like she belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, with shoulder-length dark brown hair that had natural silver streaks running through it. She wore the promised simple black dress that somehow looked both elegant and understated, and a delicate silver bracelet caught the light as she gestured to the hostess. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. Even from across the room, he could see they were intelligent and kind, with laugh lines that suggested someone who found joy despite whatever hardships life had thrown at her. The hostess pointed toward his table, and the woman's gaze found his. For a moment, they just looked at each other across the busy restaurant. Then she smiled. Not the practiced smile of someone trying to impress a billionaire, but something genuine and warm and slightly nervous. She approached the table with confident steps, and Elon found himself standing without thinking about it. Another habit from his mother's lessons in manners. You must be my mysterious dinner companion, she said as she reached the table. Her voice had a slight accent he couldn't place. Maybe European, maybe just educated. Elon, he said, extending his hand. She took it, and he noticed immediately that her palms were slightly calloused. Not from gym equipment or rock climbing, but from real work. Medical work, maybe, or engineering. I know who you are, she said with that same genuine smile as she slid into the booth across from him. The question is, do you know who you are when you're not being Elon Musk's CEO? It was such a disarming question that Elon forgot to be nervous. Most people either worshipped him or attacked him. She was doing neither. I'm not sure I understand, he said, though he understood perfectly. It was exactly the kind of question that had been keeping him awake at night lately. When's the last time you did something just for joy? She asked, settling into her seat and studying his face with those intelligent eyes. Not for humanity's future, not for Mars colonization, not for sustainable transport or neural interfaces. Just because it made you smile. The question hit him harder than a failed rocket test. He thought about his childhood in Pretoria, reading science fiction books under his bed with a flashlight after his parents thought he was asleep. Building simple rockets in his backyard with mail-order parts. Programming his first computer game just because creating something from nothing felt like magic. Before the pressure, before the expectations, before the world decided his every decision mattered to the future of human civilization. He started, then stopped. When was the last time? Playing video games felt like research into user interfaces and gaming technology. Reading was usually technical papers or business analysis. Even his hobbies had become work. I honestly can't remember, he admitted. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Like she'd asked the question before to someone else who'd done the same response. I thought so, she said gently. That's why I wanted to meet you, Elon. Jenna told me you needed to remember what it feels like to be human. Uchi restaurant. The words should have offended him. Instead, they felt like the most honest thing anyone had said to him in months. You don't pull punches, do you? Elon said, settling back into his seat. For the first time in weeks, he felt his shoulders relax slightly. Life's too short for small talk. she replied, picking up the menu. Besides, you probably get enough people telling you what they think you want to hear. She was right about that. Board meetings, investor calls, employee reviews. Everyone carefully measured their words around him. Even his friends seemed to weigh their comments, knowing that casual conversations could end up affecting stock prices or company decisions. What would you like to drink? The server appeared at their table, interrupting his thoughts. I'll have the house sake warm, she said without hesitation. And he'll have… She looked at Elon expectantly. The same, he said, though he rarely drank alcohol during business meetings. But this wasn't business, was it? As the server left, Elon studied his dinner companion more carefully. She held the menu like someone familiar with good restaurants. But there was nothing pretentious about her. No designer handbag, no obvious jewelry except that simple silver bracelet. Her dress was elegant, but could have come from any department store. You know this place well, he observed. I've been here a few times. Austin has amazing food if you know where to look. She glanced up from the menu. Though I imagine most of your meals are either grabbed between meetings or served at some fancy corporate event. You're not wrong. Yesterday I ate a protein bar for lunch while reviewing Starship test data. That's sad. It's efficient. Same thing. Sometimes. She set down the menu and looked at him directly. Tell me something, Elon. What did you want to be when you were 10 years old? Another unexpected question. He found himself thinking back to his childhood in South Africa, before his parents' divorce, before the bullying at school, before he knew what he was capable of building. An inventor, he said without hesitation. I wanted to create things that didn't exist yet. Robots, spaceships, computers that could think. And now I actually do those things. But do you still feel like that 10-year-old inventor? Or do you feel like a CEO managing people who invent things? The question cut deep. When was the last time he'd actually built something with his own hands instead of directing teams of engineers? The second one, mostly, he admitted. Though sometimes late at night at the factory, I still get my hands dirty with the actual work. Those are probably your happiest moments. They were. 3 a.m. in the Tesla factory, troubleshooting a robot arm malfunction alongside the night shift engineers. Everyone focused on solving the problem. No cameras, no reporters, just the pure joy of making something work better. The server returned with their sake, warm and fragrant. She lifted her small ceramic cup and waited for him to do the same. To remembering what joy feels like, she said. To honest conversations, he countered. They drank, and the warm sake spread through his chest like comfort he'd forgotten existed. Your turn, he said. What did you want to be when you were 10? Her expression shifted slightly, becoming more guarded. A mother, she said simply, and a docker. In that order. Did you achieve both? Yes. A soft smile crossed her face. My daughter is 15 now. She's the most amazing person I know. What about the doctor part? Trauma surgeon at Dell Children's Medical Center. I save kids' lives. She said it matter-of-factly, without pride or false modesty. Just a statement of what she did. Elon felt something shift in his chest. He'd spent the last few years being introduced to actresses, models, socialites, people whose biggest accomplishment was often their Instagram following. This woman spent her days literally saving children's lives. That must be incredibly difficult work, he said, and incredibly rewarding. Every child I save gets to grow up, go to school, fall in love, maybe change the world themselves. She paused. What we do isn't that different, actually. How so? You're trying to save humanity by getting us to Mars and switching to sustainable energy. I'm trying to save humanity one child at a time. Different scale, same goal. You'd never thought of it that way. But your results are immediate. You save a life, that person goes home to their family that night, and your results last for generations. A child I save might grow up to be an engineer at SpaceX, helping to make Mars colonies possible. She leaned forward slightly. We're both in the business of hope, Elon. The server approached to take their food order. She ordered expertly, the chef's tasting menu with modifications that showed she knew the kitchen's strengths. Elon let her order for both of them, curious about her choices. You seem to know your way around good food, he said. after the server left. My daughter and I are adventurous eaters. She especially loves trying new things. Last week we had Ethiopian food for the first time. Her eyes lit up when she talked about her daughter. She's teaching herself Amharic now, so she can read the menu next time. She sounds brilliant. She is. Scary brilliant, actually. She's taking college-level physics and calculus online, and she wants to study astrophysics in college. A proud but slightly worried expression crossed her face. Sometimes I think she's too smart for her own good. What do you mean? She sees problems everywhere and wants to fix them all. Sound familiar? The question had an edge of gentle teasing. Where does she want to go to college? MIT, Stanford, Caltech. She wants to work in space exploration. The woman paused, studying Elon's face. She actually follows SpaceX launches religiously. As since she was 12. Something about the way she said it made Elon's attention sharpen. Really? She builds model rockets, studies orbital mechanics for fun, and she's convinced that Mars colonization is humanity's most important project. A soft laugh. She'd probably faint if she knew I was having dinner with you right now. What's her name? Luna. The woman's voice was soft with affection. I named her Luna because even when she was tiny, she was this bright light in the darkness. Luna. Moon. Space. The coincidence felt significant, though Elon couldn't put his finger on why. She sounds like someone I'd love to meet, he said carefully. The woman's expression became thoughtful. She'd love that, though fair warning, she'd probably interrogate you about Raptor engine specifications and optimal trajectory calculations for Mars transit. I could handle that. I'm sure you could. She tilted her head, studying him. Can I ask you something personal? You've been asking personal questions all night. Fair point. But this one's different. She hesitated. What scares you most about the future you're trying to build? No one had ever asked him that. People asked about timelines, funding, technical challenges. But not about fear. That I'll fail, he said quietly. That humanity will stay stuck on Earth. That we'll destroy ourselves with climate change, or war, or stupidity. And it will be because I wasn't smart enough, or fast enough, or good enough to save us. That's a lot of pressure for one person to carry. Someone has to carry it. Do they? Really? She leaned forward. What if the future you're building is happening because you inspired thousands of other people to work toward it too? What if you're not Atlas holding up the world, but the first person to start building a ladder to the stars? The metaphor hit him like lightning. He'd been thinking of himself as solely responsible for humanity's future. But she was right. SpaceX employed thousands of brilliant engineers. Tesla had inspired dozens of other companies to build electric vehicles. Neuralink had sparked a whole new field of brain-computer interface research. I never thought of it that way, he admitted. Because you're too close to it. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see the bigger picture. Their first course arrived, delicate sashimi arranged like art on handmade plates. She ate with appreciation but not pretension, clearly enjoying the food without making a show of it. What about you? He asked. What scares you about the future? That my daughter will grow up and not need me anymore, she said without hesitation. That all the sacrifices I made to raise her and build my career will leave me with an empty life when she goes off to change the world. How long have you been raising her alone? 15 years. Her father, she paused, choosing her words carefully. He wasn't ready for the responsibility. Left when she was a baby. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off without him. Luna and I were a team. We've gotten through everything together. Everything? Her expression darkened slightly. She was born with a heart defect, required surgery when she was 3, and follow-up procedures for years after. That's actually what made me decide to become a doctor. Watching the surgeon who saved her life, seeing how much difference one skilled person could make. Elon felt his chest tighten. Is she okay now? Completely healthy. You'd never know she spent the first few years of her life in and out of hospitals. Pride filled her voice. She's stronger than I ever was at her age. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of their second course, but Elon's mind was racing. A brilliant 15-year-old named Luna, who loved space exploration, wanted to study astrophysics, and had overcome early health challenges, a mother who'd sacrificed everything to raise her alone and save other children's lives. There was something hauntingly familiar about their story, though he couldn't place what. "Can I ask you something now?" he said as they shared the perfectly prepared fish. "Shoot. Why did you agree to this blind date? Someone like you. Brilliant. Successful. Beautiful. You could meet anyone." She set down her chopsticks and considered the question seriously. "Because Jenna told me you were lonely, and I know what that feels like. But you have Luna." "I do. And she's everything to me. But parental love is different from other kinds of love. You give and give and give, which is beautiful. But it's not reciprocal in the same way. You can't burden your child with your fears and struggles. So you're lonely too." "I'm about to be. Luna's applying to colleges. In less than 3 years, she'll be living her own life, probably on the other side of the country. And I'll have to figure out who I am when I'm not just Luna's mom and Dr. Smith, trauma surgeon." Wait, Dr. Smith. She still hadn't told him her real name. "I just realized," he said. "I never got your actual name." She smiled mysteriously. "What would you like to call me?" "I'd like to call you by your real name. For tonight." "How about Dr. Smith works fine." There was something in her tone that suggested the mystery was intentional, but not malicious. Like there was a reason she needed to maintain some distance. At least for now. Elon decided not to push. If she wanted to keep some privacy, he could respect that. In his world, privacy was precious and rare. Still at Uchi, "All right, Dr. Smith," he said. "Tell me more about Luna's interest in space." Her face lit up in a way that made her look years younger. "Where do I even start?" She built her first model rocket when she was 8. Not a kit. She designed it herself using online tutorials and math she taught herself. Did it work? "It flew 20 feet and crashed into our neighbor's fence." She laughed. But she was so proud. She spent the next week figuring out what went wrong and built a better one. Elon found himself leaning forward, genuinely interested. "What kind of rockets does she build now?" Last month she finished a 2-stage model that reached 800 feet. She calculated the trajectory, designed the recovery system, even programmed a small computer to track flight data. Dr. Smith pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. The rocket was sleek and professional looking, clearly the work of someone who understood aerodynamics. But it was the girl standing next to it that caught Elon's attention. Luna was tall for 15, with dark hair and an expression of pure joy and pride. Something about her face seemed familiar, though he couldn't place why. "She's beautiful," he said, "and clearly brilliant. She gets that from her father," Dr. Smith said softly, then seemed to catch herself. "I mean the intelligence. He is very smart." "You said he left when she was a baby. Do you ever hear from him?" Her expression became guarded. "No, he made his choice. Luna and I made our." "Does she ask about him?" "Sometimes. Especially lately, as she's getting older and thinking about college, she wonders if he'd be proud of her achievements." "I'm sure he would be. I hope so." She put her phone away. But enough about that. Luna also loves studying Mars mission profiles. She's read every paper SpaceX has published about life support systems and habitat design. Really, she has theories about everything. Last week she was explaining to me why she thinks we need to build underground habitats instead of surface domes. Something about radiation protection and thermal stability. Elon was impressed. "She's absolutely right. That's exactly what our Mars architects are working on." She'd love to hear that. She's applying to MIT's Aerospace Engineering program, and her essay is about sustainable Mars colonies. At 15, she's taking her SATs next month. If her scores are what we expect, she'll graduate high school a year early and start college at 17. The conversation was interrupted by their next course. Perfectly prepared beef with miso glaze. As they ate, Dr. Smith continued talking about Luna's projects and dreams. "She volunteers at the Children's Hospital with me sometimes," she said. "Reads to the younger kids, helps with art therapy. She tells them stories about astronauts and space exploration to help them forget about being sick. That's wonderful. She says if she can't cure their diseases, at least she can give them dreams about the future." Dr. Smith's eyes grew soft. "Sometimes I think she understands more about hope than most adults do. Sounds like she takes after her mother too. We take after each other. She keeps me grounded when work gets overwhelming, and I try to support her dreams even when they scare me. What scares you about her dreams? Space is dangerous. Mars missions will be incredibly risky. The idea of my daughter traveling millions of miles away from Earth, she shuddered slightly. But I also know I can't hold her back from her calling. Elon understood that fear. His own mother had worried when he started SpaceX, knowing that rocket development was one of the most dangerous fields in engineering. What if she could contribute to space exploration from Earth? He suggested. Mission control, habitat design, life support systems development. I've suggested that. She says someone has to be willing to go, or all the planning is pointless. Dr. Smith smiled ruefully. She's not wrong. She sounds like someone who would fit right in at SpaceX. That's her dream job, actually. She has a poster of the Falcon Heavy launch in her bedroom, and a timeline of all your Mars mission plans on her wall. Elon felt something stir in his chest. Pride. Protectiveness. A connection he couldn't quite name. I'd love to meet her sometime. Maybe give her a tour of the facility. She would absolutely lose her mind with excitement. Dr. Smith paused. But are you sure? You must get requests like that constantly. Not from 15-year-old rocket scientists who read SpaceX research papers for fun. Fair point. As they shared dessert, an incredible chocolate creation that was almost too beautiful to eat, the conversation drifted to Oda topics. She asked about his childhood, his early businesses, what drove him to take such massive risks. Don't you think fixing Earth should come first? She asked, not accusingly but with genuine curiosity. I see kids every day who suffer from preventable diseases, malnutrition, violence. Shouldn't we save the children here before we worry about children on Mars? It was a question he'd wrestled with for years, one that kept him awake sometimes. I think about that constantly. But here's the thing, we need backup plans. If something happens to Earth, all those children you're saving won't matter. We need to become a multi-planetary species to ensure humanity survives. But what if we're just running away from problems instead of fixing them? He'd heard this argument before, but not like this. Not from someone who spent her days actually saving lives. Maybe both are necessary. You save lives one at a time. I'm trying to save the species. Fair point, she conceded. Though I'd argue each individual life is worth saving, even if it's not cosmic in scale. I agree completely. That's why what you do matters so much. They debated space exploration versus earthly problems, artificial intelligence ethics, the responsibility that comes with wealth and influence. She wasn't impressed by his money or status. If anything, she seemed to see them as burdens he carried. Do you ever get tired of being responsible for the future? She asked as they finished their wine. Every day, he admitted. Sometimes I lie awake thinking about all the people depending on Tesla stock for their retirement. All the SpaceX employees who believe we'll get to Mars. Everyone who thinks I have answers I don't have. That must be incredibly lonely. It was. He'd never said it out loud to anyone. But it was. What about you? He asked. Holding people's lives in your hands during surgery. How do you handle that pressure? I almost didn't, she said quietly. After Luna's surgery, when I decided to become a doctor, I had to go back to school. Medical school at 35 with a young child, while dealing with… She paused. Well, life threw some curveballs. Like what? She hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. My husband, Luna's father. He couldn't handle having a sick child. The surgeries, the uncertainty, the hospital stays. He said it wasn't what he signed up for. Elon felt anger rise in his chest. What kind of person abandons their child when she needs them most? The kind who only wants the perfect Instagram family, she said with bitter experience. He filed for divorce while she was still recovering from her heart surgery. Fought for custody he didn't want just to hurt me, then disappeared completely when the medical bills started coming. So you raised her alone while becoming a surgeon? My parents helped when they could. But mostly yes. Luna and I, against the world. Her voice strengthened. And we won. She's healthy, brilliant, and kind. I have a career that lets me save other children like her. We're both exactly where we're supposed to be. Does she resent the sacrifice? The years when you were studying instead of being fully present? Sometimes, I think. But she also understands that I did it for her, and for kids like her. She comes to the hospital sometimes and sees what we do. She says she wants to explore space because she knows what it's like to fight for your life. Something clicked in Elon's mind, a connection he couldn't quite grasp. What's her full name? Luna Chen, she said, then seemed to realize she'd revealed more than intended. Chen, is that your real last name? She smiled mysteriously. It's one of my real last names. How many do you have? More than you might expect. The evasiveness was becoming more intriguing than frustrating. Dr. Chen then. Dr. Smith is fine for now. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Elon found himself not wanting the evening to end. The conversation had been unlike any he'd had in years. Challenging, honest, deeply personal. Would you like to continue this somewhere else? He asked. Maybe a walk? Coffee? I'd like that very much. Outside the restaurant, the Austin evening was perfect. Warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of spring flowers. The city lights twinkled around them, and for once Elon felt present in the moment instead of thinking 3 steps ahead. There's a nice walk along Lady Bird Lake, she suggested. Unless you need to get back to changing the world. The world can wait a few more hours. Good answer. As they walked toward her car, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that this woman and her daughter were going to change his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. There was something about Luna's story, her intelligence, her dreams of space exploration, that felt significant beyond coincidence. And Dr. Smith herself, the way she understood his struggles, challenged his thinking, saw through his public persona to the person underneath, was unlike anyone he'd ever met. Dr. Smith, yes? Thank you for tonight. For seeing me instead of just seeing Elon Musk. CEO, thank you for being worth seeing. The simple words hit him harder than any business compliment ever had. As they reached her car, a practical Hodden Civic that was clearly well-maintained but several years old, he found himself already planning their next conversation. Same time next week? He asked hopefully. I'd like that, though maybe somewhere we can talk without worrying about photographers. I know just the place. As she drove away, Elon stood in the parking lot, watching her taillights disappear into Austin traffic. The evening had raised more questions than it answered. But for the first time in months, he felt genuinely excited about something that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or rocket launches. Lady Bird Lake Trail. Thursday evening. 1 week later, he had a feeling Dr. Smith and Luna were about to become very important parts of his life. That feeling had proven right. Over the past week, they'd exchanged dozens of text messages. Nothing romantic or dramatic, just conversations that felt surprisingly natural. She'd send him photos of Luna's latest rocket modifications. He'd share pictures from SpaceX tests, explaining the engineering challenges in simple terms she could pass along to her daughter. Now they were walking along Lady Bird Lake, as the sun set over Austin's skyline. She'd suggested this spot, saying it was where she came to think after difficult surgeries. How was your day? She asked, falling into step beside him. Long. We had a Raptor engine test that didn't go as planned. He rubbed his temples. Sometimes I wonder if we're trying to do too much too fast. What happened? Pressure buildup in the combustion chamber. Nothing dangerous, but it means another month of delays. He looked out over the water. Every delay is thousands of people wondering if their jobs are secure, investors questioning our timeline, critics saying we'll never make it to Mars. But you will make it. How can you be so sure? Because you don't know how to quit. Luna showed me videos of your early Falcon 1 launches. The first 3 failed, but you kept trying. Those failures almost bankrupted SpaceX, but they didn't. And each failure taught you something that made the 4th launch successful. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Luna says failure is just data collection for engineers. Smart kid. She gets that attitude from watching me in medical school. I failed my first anatomy exam completely, cried in the bathroom for an hour. What did you do? Studied harder, changed my approach, asked for help. She smiled. Ended up graduating 3rd in my class. They found a bench overlooking the water. In the distance, they could see the Tesla Gigafactory lit up like a beacon against the darkening sky. That yours? She asked, pointing. One of them. We employ about 20,000 people there now. And that keeps you up at night? Everything keeps me up at night, he admitted. The responsibility, the deadlines. the constant criticism. Half the world thinks I'm humanity's savior. The other half thinks I'm a dangerous narcissist who wastes money on vanity projects. What do you think you are? It was such a simple question, but Elon realized no one had asked him that in years. Everyone assumed they knew who he was based on headlines and social media posts. Honestly, I think I'm a kid who read too much science fiction and got lucky enough to make some of it real. But now everyone expects me to have all the answers. And most of the time, I'm just making educated guesses. That's the most honest thing I've heard from any billionaire. She laughed. Most would give me some speech about being chosen by destiny to lead humanity into the future. Would you believe I sometimes Google how to run a company at 3 in the morning? Actually, yes. I believe that completely. She studied his profile in the fading light. I Google how to be a good mother at least once a week. You seem like an amazing mother from everything I've heard. I'm trying my best. But raising a child who's smarter than you are is challenging. Luna reads physics papers I can barely understand. She asks questions about space exploration that make me realize how little I know about her biggest passion. Is that why you wanted to meet me? She was quiet for a long moment. Partly. I thought maybe if she could meet someone who shares her interests, someone who's actually doing what she dreams of doing, it might help her feel less alone. She feels alone? Brilliant kids often do. She's taking college courses while her classmates worry about prom dates. She builds rockets while they play video games. She talks about Mars colonization while they talk about TikTok videos. Elon understood that loneliness. He'd been the weird kid reading programming manuals while others played sports. But there's another reason I wanted to meet you, she continued. Jenna told me you were struggling with work-life balance, that you'd forgotten how to be happy. Jenna talks too much. She cares about you. And she was right. About what? You're burning out. I can see it in your eyes, the way you carry tension in your shoulders. I've seen it before. In your patience? In myself. She turned to face him fully. 3 years ago, I was working 100-hour weeks, taking every extra shift, trying to save every child who came through our doors. I thought if I just worked harder, studied more, pushed myself further, I could prevent every tragedy. What happened? I collapsed. Literally. In the hospital parking lot, after a 30-hour shift. Exhaustion, dehydration, stress-induced cardiac symptoms. The memory clearly still affected her. Luna found me. She'd been waiting in the car for 2 hours because I forgot to pick her up from school. God. That 12-year-old girl called 911, stayed calm while paramedics checked me over, and then looked me in the eye and said, "Mom, you can't save everyone if you don't save yourself first." Wise kid. Wiser than her mother at the time. She looked out over the water. That's when I learned to set boundaries. To say no to extra shifts sometimes. To take care of myself so I could take care of others. And you think I need to learn that too? I think you're heading for your own parking lot moment if you don't. They sat in comfortable silence, watching a family of ducks swim past. Elon found himself thinking about the last time he'd felt truly relaxed, truly present in a moment like this. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said. "You've been asking personal questions all week. This one's different." He hesitated. "Why haven't you dated anyone in 12 years? Someone like you. Brilliant, beautiful, dedicated to helping others. You could have your pick of men." She was quiet for so long he thought she wasn't going to answer. "Because the last man I trusted completely broke that trust when I needed him most," she said finally. "Luna's father didn't just leave us. He made me feel like damaged goods. Like loving a sick child was too much to ask of anyone. That's his loss and his failure, not yours. I know that logically. But emotionally," she shrugged. "It's taken years to believe I'm worth loving again. And by then I was so focused on Luna and my career that dating felt impossible." What changed? Luna's growing up. In 2 years, she'll be at college, starting her own life. And I realized I don't know who I am when I'm not just Luna's mom and Dr. Chen. Chen? She caught herself. Smith. Dr. Smith. You said Chen earlier. At the restaurant. Did I? She looked flustered for the first time since he'd met her. I have a complicated relationship with names. Meaning some parts of my past are better left in the past. Are you in some kind of trouble? Witness protection? Nothing that dramatic. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just a woman who made some choices that required starting over with a new identity. What kind of choices? The kind where you have to decide between your own happiness and protecting someone you love. The cryptic answer raised more questions than it answered. But something in her tone warned him not to push. She'd share when she was ready, if she ever was. "Can I ask you something now?" she said. "Fair's fair. When did you last do something purely for joy? And don't say playing video games, because I know that's research for neural interfaces and user experience design." She was right, as usual. "I honestly can't remember. That's what I was afraid of." She stood up from the bench. "Come on. Where are we going?" "To remember what joy feels like." She led him to a small playground near the trail. It was empty except for a few teenagers hanging out by the basketball court. "When did you last swing on a swing set?" she asked. "I'm 42 years old." "That's not an answer. Probably when I was 8 or 9. "Perfect. Time to remember what it feels like to fly." She kicked off her shoes and climbed onto one of the swings. After a moment's hesitation, Elon did the same. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Good. Ridiculous is the point." She pushed off and began swinging, her hair flying behind her, laughing like a child. Despite himself, Elon found himself pumping his legs, gaining height and momentum. And then for the first time in years, he laughed. Really laughed. Not the polite chuckle of business meetings or the forced smile of photo opportunities, but the pure joyful laughter of someone who'd forgotten how good it felt to do something completely pointless. "When did you last feel this free?" she called out, swinging higher. "I can't remember," he called back and realized it was true. They swung in comfortable silence as the stars came out overhead. Austin's lights twinkled around them, but for once Elon wasn't thinking about the city's growth or Tesla's impact on local employment. He was just a man on a swing, feeling like he was flying. "Thank you," he said as they finally slowed to a stop. "For what?" "For reminding me that it's okay to be human sometimes." "You're human all the time, Elon. You just forget it occasionally." As they walked back toward their cars, Elon felt something shift inside him. A loosening of tension he hadn't even realized he was carrying. For the first time in months, he wasn't mentally reviewing tomorrow's schedule or worrying about next quarter's deadlines. "Dr. Smith?" "Yes? Would you and Luna like to visit SpaceX this weekend? I could give you both a tour. Show her the Raptor engines up close." Her face lit up. She would absolutely lose her mind with excitement. "Saturday afternoon work for you?" "Perfect." "But Elon?" "Yeah?" "Be prepared for her to know more about your rockets than most of your engineers do." "I'm looking forward to it." As they reached their cars, she turned to him one more time. "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll swing on that swing set again sometime. By yourself. Just because it makes you smile." "I promise." "Good." Luna would say that's the most important homework assignment you've ever gotten. As she drove away, Elon stood in the parking lot, looking up at the stars. Somewhere among them, Mars waited for human exploration. But right here on Earth, he just rediscovered something he'd forgotten. The simple joy of being alive in the moment. SpaceX Starbase facility. Saturday afternoon. And in 2 days he was going to meet Luna Chen, the brilliant 15-year-old who might just be the most important person he'd never known he was looking for. Those words had echoed in Elon's mind all Friday night and into Saturday morning. Now, standing at the entrance of SpaceX's Austin facility, he found himself more nervous than before any rocket launch. "Mr. Musk?" His security chief, Marcus, approached with a tablet. "Your guest just cleared the main gate." Through the reinforced glass doors, Elon watched a familiar Honda Civic pull into the visitor parking area. Dr. Smith stepped out first, wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater. Then came Luna. Even from a distance, she was striking. Tall for 15, with shoulder-length dark hair and an expression of barely contained excitement. She carried a notebook and what looked like a tablet, probably loaded with questions about rocket engineering. As they approached the entrance, Elon got his first clear look at Luna's face. His breath stopped. The resemblance was subtle but unmistakable. Something about the shape of her eyes, the way she held her head when concentrating, the determined set of her jaw. It was like looking at a feminine version of himself at that age. "Elon, I'd like you to meet my daughter, Luna," Dr. Smith said as they entered the lobby. Holy cow, you're actually Elon Musk, Luna said, then immediately looked embarrassed. Sorry, Mom always tells me not to be starstruck, but this is literally my dream come true. It's an honor to meet you, Luna. Your mom tells me you're quite the rocket scientist yourself. I try to be. I've read every paper SpaceX has published, watched every launch video at least 3 times, and I've been working on my own Mars habitat design. She opened her tablet eagerly. Would you like to see it? Before Elon could answer, she was showing him detailed drawings of underground living spaces, complete with life support calculations and radiation shielding specifications. This is graduate-level work, he said, genuinely impressed. Have you considered atmospheric processors for oxygen generation? Yes. I was thinking we could use a modified Sabatier reaction to convert CO2 from the Martian atmosphere. Luna's eyes lit up. But I wasn't sure about power requirements for the electrolysis systems. As Luna launched into an explanation of her designs, Elon found himself studying her mannerisms. The way she gestured when excited, the rapid-fire way she spoke when passionate about something, the intensity of her focus, it was all hauntingly familiar. Should we start the tour? Dr. Smith suggested gently, probably noticing that her daughter was about to launch into a full engineering presentation in the lobby. Of course. Luna, what would you like to see first? Everything, she said immediately, but especially the Raptor engines. I've been trying to understand how you achieved such high combustion efficiency. Elon led them through the facility, explaining each area as they walked. Luna asked questions that would have challenged his senior engineers. She understood concepts that most college students struggled with, and her questions revealed a deep grasp of both theoretical physics and practical engineering challenges. How do you prevent combustion instability at such high pressures? She asked, as they stood before a Raptor engine on the test stand. Multiple injection systems and careful acoustic design, Elon explained. But we're still working on optimizing the mixture ratios for different flight phases. Have you considered variable geometry injectors? They use them in jet engines for similar efficiency problems. Elon stopped walking. That's actually a really interesting idea. We've been focused on fixed geometry systems. Luna reads everything, Dr. Smith said with obvious pride. Aerospace journals, physics papers, engineering reports. She taught herself calculus just so she could understand propulsion equations. As they continued the tour, Elon found himself watching Luna as much as he was explaining the technology. Her enthusiasm was infectious, her questions insightful, and her obvious intelligence impressive. But it was more than that. There was something about her that felt like coming home. Mr. Musk, Luna said as they stood in front of the Starship prototype, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you ever feel like you were born too early? Like you should have been born when Mars colonies already existed? The question hit Elon like lightning. It was exactly how he'd felt as a child in South Africa, like he belonged to a future that hadn't arrived yet. Every day of my life, he answered honestly. Me too. Luna's face lit up. Mom says I'm impatient for the future. Your mom is right. But impatience can be fuel for making that future happen faster. That's what I tell her when she worries about me wanting to be on the first Mars missions. Dr. Smith had been quiet during most of the technical discussions. But now she spoke up. I worry because space exploration is dangerous. Mars missions will be incredibly risky. But Mom, Luna said with the patience of someone who'd had this conversation before, someone has to be willing to go, or all the planning is pointless. She's not wrong, Elon said gently. Though I understand your concern, the people who go to Mars will be pioneers in the truest sense. Exactly. Luna turned to her mother. And you taught me that sometimes you have to take risks to achieve something meaningful. I taught you that in the context of studying hard for school, not traveling to another planet. Same principle, bigger scale. As they finished the facility tour, Elon found himself reluctant to say goodbye. Luna's passion for space exploration, her brilliant questions, and her obvious affection for her mother had made the afternoon feel more like visiting with family than giving a corporate tour. Thank you so much for this, Dr. Smith said as they reached the lobby. This has been Luna's dream for years. Thank you for coming. Luna, keep working on those habitat designs. I meant it when I said they're graduate-level work. Really? Luna's eyes went wide. You think they're good enough to maybe, possibly, potentially be useful for actual Mars missions? I think they're good enough that I'd like to see your next iteration. Send them to me when you're ready. Are you serious? You want to see my work? Absolutely. And Luna? Yes, sir? Keep asking questions like the ones you asked today. Those are the kinds of questions that lead to breakthroughs. As they walked toward the parking area, Luna chatted excitedly about everything she'd seen. But Elon found himself walking closer to Dr. Smith, drawn by questions he couldn't quite voice. She's incredible, he said quietly. She's my whole world. She reminds me of myself at that age. That same hunger to understand how everything works. She gets that from her father, Dr. Smith said, then seemed to catch herself. I mean, her biological father was very intelligent. You've mentioned him a few times. Do you mind me asking what happened? Why he's not in her life? Dr. Smith was quiet for a long moment. It's complicated. Most worthwhile things are. She stopped walking and looked at him directly. The truth is, he never knew about her. Elon felt something cold settle in his stomach. What do you mean? I made a choice not to tell him I was pregnant. He was going through some major life changes at the time. Big career decisions, public pressure, the kind of responsibilities that would have made a surprise pregnancy feel like just another burden. But that should have been his choice to make. Should it? What if telling him would have ruined both their lives? What if he wasn't ready to be a father, and she wasn't ready to have a father who resented her existence? Elon stopped walking entirely. Something in her tone, the careful way she was choosing her words, was making his heart race. When was Luna born? He asked quietly. 15 years and 4 months ago. The timeline hit him like a physical blow. 15 years and 4 months ago, he'd been going through his divorce from Justine. He'd been working around the clock on Tesla and SpaceX, barely sleeping, carrying the weight of 2 companies that everyone said would fail. There had been someone, though. A brief relationship during that chaotic time. A brilliant engineer he'd met at a conference in Austin. They'd spent a week together before she'd suddenly ended things, saying she needed to focus on her career. He'd never seen her again. Dr. Smith, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What's your real name? She looked at him for a long moment, and he saw tears beginning to form in her eyes. Sarah, she said quietly. Dr. Sarah Chen. And 16 years ago, we spent a week together in Austin that changed both our lives forever. The world tilted on its axis. Luna wasn't just a brilliant 15-year-old who reminded him of himself. Luna was his daughter. Why didn't you tell me? He managed to ask. Because you were already carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Because Tesla was nearly bankrupt and SpaceX had just had its 3rd failed launch. Because you were working 18-hour days trying to revolutionize 2 entire industries. Tears were flowing freely now, because I loved you enough to not become another obligation you couldn't handle. Elon looked across the parking lot at Luna, who was taking photos of the SpaceX logo with her phone, probably to show her friends at school. His daughter, the brilliant, passionate, space-obsessed teenager who dreamed of Mars colonies, was his daughter. Does she know? He asked. She knows her father was someone I cared about deeply but couldn't be with. She knows he would be proud of her if he knew her. She doesn't know it's you, Sarah. He could barely speak. I've missed 15 years of her life. You've been changing the world for 15 years. Luna understands that kind of dedication because she sees it in me every day at the hospital. But I could have been there for you. For both of you. Could you? Really? Sarah's voice was gentle but honest. With everything you were dealing with, could you have handled a surprise pregnancy and a sick baby and all the sleepless nights and medical bills? Elon thought about those early years of Tesla and SpaceX. The constant crises, the near bankruptcies, the public failures. Would he have been able to be the father Luna deserved? I don't know, he admitted, but I would have tried. I know you would have. That's why I didn't tell you. Because you would have tried to do everything and it would have destroyed you. They stood in silence, watching Luna, who had now moved on to taking selfies with the facility in the background. What happens now? Elon asked. That's up to you. I won't demand anything. I won't ask for support I never needed. But Luna's gonna start asking harder questions about her father soon, especially as she applies to colleges. And I thought, her voice broke slightly. I thought maybe it was time for her to know the truth. I want to know her, Elon said immediately. I want to be her father. I want to make up for 15 years of missed birthdays and school plays and bedtime stories. It's not that simple. Elon, she has a life, friends, routines. We can't just upend everything because you found out. Then what do you suggest? Start slowly. Be her friend first. Mentor her passion for space exploration. Let her get to know you gradually, and when the time is right, when she's ready, we'll tell her the truth. Elon nodded, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he just learned. A week ago, he was a lonely billionaire trying to save humanity. Now he was a father to a daughter who shared his dreams of reaching the stars. Can I see her again soon? He asked. She'd love that. But Elon? Yes? Promise me you won't break her heart. She's stronger than I was at her age. But she's still my baby girl. I promise, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I swear on everything I've built, I will never hurt her. As they walked back toward Luna, who was now showing her photos to a group of SpaceX engineers who had recognized her enthusiasm, Elon felt his entire world reshaping itself around this new reality. He had a daughter, a brilliant, passionate, space-obsessed daughter who dreamed of the same future he was building. Dell Children's Medical Center. 3 weeks later, and somehow that felt more important than every rocket he'd ever launched. The thought had consumed Elon for 3 weeks now. Every SpaceX meeting, every Tesla review, every Neuralink update felt secondary to the growing relationship with Luna. They'd been texting daily, discussing everything from Mars terraforming to her latest rocket designs. She'd started calling him Elon instead of Mr. Musk, treating him like a trusted mentor rather than a distant celebrity. Tonight was different though. Sarah had texted him an hour ago with an urgent message. Luna's volunteering at the hospital tonight. Something happened during her shift. Can you come? Now Elon stood in the pediatric wing of Dell Children's Medical Center, looking for Sarah. The hospital buzzed with its usual controlled chaos. Nurses moving between rooms, doctors reviewing charts, families waiting anxiously in small clusters. Elon. Sarah appeared around the corner, still in surgical scrubs. She looked exhausted but relieved. Thank you for coming. What happened? Is Luna okay? She's fine. Better than fine, actually. But something occurred tonight that Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. I think it's time, Elon. Time for her to know the truth. What do you mean? Come with me. I want you to see something. Sarah led him down a hallway lined with colorful murals of cartoon animals and spaceships. Through one doorway, Elon could see Luna sitting beside a hospital bed, reading to a young boy who couldn't have been more than 7 years old. That's Marcus, Sarah explained quietly. He's been here for 2 months. Leukemia. His parents work double shifts to pay for treatment, so he's alone most evenings. Elon watched as Luna showed Marcus pictures on her tablet, rocket designs, photos of Mars, diagrams of space stations. The little boy's eyes were wide with wonder despite his obvious fatigue. Luna's been reading to him every Friday for 6 weeks, Sarah continued. Tonight was different though. How? Marcus asked her why she loves space so much. And Luna, Sarah's voice broke slightly. Luna told him that her father was someone who built rockets to help people reach for their dreams, even when those dreams seemed impossible. Elon felt his chest tighten. What did she say exactly? She said her father was someone who never gave up, even when everyone said his ideas wouldn't work. Someone who believed that ordinary people could do extraordinary things if they had the courage to try. Through the doorway, Elon could hear Luna's voice. And that's why we're going to Mars, Marcus. Not because it's easy, but because it's the next step for humanity. My father always says that Earth is the cradle of humanity, but you can't stay in the cradle forever. She's never met me, Elon whispered. How does she know those things? Because she's been watching you her entire life. Every interview, every launch, every presentation. She's been building an image of her father based on the man she sees changing the world. And she doesn't know, she suspects. She's too smart not to notice the timing. The similarities in thinking, the way you and I look at each other. Sarah turned to face him, but she's waiting for us to tell her. She's giving us the space to be ready. They moved away from the doorway as Luna finished her story and began tucking Marcus in for the night. Elon watched her gentle manner with the sick child, the way she made sure he had his stuffed astronaut bear before turning off the light. She's incredible, he said. She gets that from both of us. Sarah smiled. She has your vision and determination, but she also has learned compassion from watching what I do here. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Do you regret not telling me? All these years, raising her alone, going through medical school as a single mother, watching her grow up without her father. Do you regret that choice? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, considering the question seriously. No, she said finally. I don't regret protecting both of you from a situation that would have been impossible. But I do regret that Luna grew up wondering if her father would be proud of her. Of course I'm proud of her. She's extraordinary. Then tell her that. Tonight. Elon's heart raced. Are you sure? She's applying to MIT next month. She'll be 17 when she starts college. She needs to know who she is before she goes out into the world. Sarah touched his arm gently. And you need to know what it feels like to be her father, not just her mentor. Luna appeared in the hallway, her volunteer badge still pinned to her sweater. She looked surprised but pleased to see Elon. Hey, what are you doing here? She asked. I came to see how the future Mars colonist was doing, Elon replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Marcus loves hearing about space missions. I think it helps him forget about being sick. Luna's expression grew serious. He asked me tonight if my father would be proud that I volunteer here. What did you tell him? I told him I thought my father would understand that helping people is just as important as reaching for the stars. The simple wisdom of her answer nearly brought Elon to tears. Luna, Sarah said gently, there's something Elon and I need to tell you. Should we go somewhere private? Is everything okay? Luna looked between them, her expression shifting to concern. Everything's fine, Elon said quickly. Better than fine. But Sarah's right. We should talk somewhere quiet. They found an empty family consultation room down the hall. Luna sat in one of the comfortable chairs while Elon and Sarah took seats across from her. Luna. Sarah began, do you remember when you were younger how you used to ask about your father? Of course. You always said he was someone special who couldn't be part of our lives but would be proud of me if he knew me. That was true. All of it. Sarah looked at Elon, who nodded encouragingly. But there's more to the story. Luna's intelligent eyes moved between them, and Elon could see her brilliant mind starting to piece things together. How much more? She asked quietly. Luna, Elon said, his voice thick with emotion, your mother and I met 16 years ago. We spent one wonderful week together before life pulled us in different directions. Oh my God. Luna's hand went to her mouth. Are you saying? I'm saying that everything you've told Marcus about your father is true. And I'm saying that I've been looking for you my whole life without knowing it. Luna stared at him for a long moment, processing the information. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. You're my father? Yes. The actual Elon Musk is my biological father? Yes. Luna was quiet for what felt like an eternity. Then, to Elon's surprise, she started to laugh, not hysterically, but with genuine joy. That explains so much, she said. Why I've always felt connected to SpaceX missions. Why your interviews always made perfect sense to me. Why Mom gets that weird look on her face whenever your name comes up on the news. Are you okay with this? Sarah asked anxiously. I know it's a lot to process. Okay with it. Mom, I've been dreaming of Mars colonies since I was 8 years old. My biological father is literally the person making that dream possible. Luna looked at Elon with shining eyes. Are you kidding me? This is the best day of my life. Really? Elon could barely speak. Really? Though I do have some questions. Ask me anything. Why didn't you know about me? Sarah answered. Because I made the choice not to tell him. He was trying to save the world and I didn't want to add to his burdens. That was stupid, Mom. Luna. Sarah looked shocked. No, seriously. That was a stupid decision. Luna turned to Elon. Did you want kids back then? Yes. I've always wanted children. And you would have tried to be a good father? I would have tried to be the best father possible. Then Mom was wrong to keep us apart. Luna stood up and crossed to Sarah. I love you and I understand why you thought you were protecting us. But you robbed us of 15 years together. I know, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. Luna hugged her mother tightly, then turned to Elon. Can I hug you? Is that weird? I mean, you're my father, but we just met as father and daughter like 5 minutes ago. Elon stood and opened his arms. Luna stepped into them, and for the first time in his life, he hugged his daughter. "I'm sorry I missed so much," he said into her hair. "We'll make up for it. We have time." She pulled back to look at him. "Can I ask you something else?" "Anything." "The first Mars mission, when do you think it will happen?" "If everything goes according to plan, maybe 8 to 10 years. I'll be 25 then." "Old enough to be part of the crew?" Elon looked at Sarah, who rolled her eyes, but was smiling. "Luna, you just found out who your father is, and you're already asking him to let you travel to Mars?" "Mom, my father is Elon Musk. If I can't ask him about Mars missions, who can I ask?" "She has a point," Elon said, grinning. "Don't encourage her," Sarah warned. But she was laughing now. "Too late," Luna said. "I have 15 years of father-daughter conversations to catch up on, and most of them are going to be about space exploration." As they left the hospital together, walking toward the parking garage, Elon felt a completeness he'd never experienced before. For years, he'd been building a future for humanity among the stars. Now he realized he'd been building it for Luna all along. "So what happens now?" he asked, as they reached their cars. "Now we figure out how to be a family," Sarah said. "A very unusual family, but a family nonetheless. Can we start with dinner tomorrow?" Luna asked. "I have about 1,000,000 questions about rocket propulsion systems, and I have 16 years of bedtime stories to catch up on," Elon replied. "I'm probably too old for bedtime stories." "You're never too old for stories about reaching for the stars." As they drove away in separate cars, Elon looked up at the night sky. Mars was invisible in the city lights, but he knew it was there, waiting for human exploration. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just building humanity's future among the stars. He was building it for his daughter, who would be part of that future herself. And somehow that made every impossible dream feel absolutely certain to come true. That was the end of this incredible journey with Elon and Luna. A blind date that revealed the most precious secret of all, that sometimes the family we're searching for has been searching for us too. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. It's amazing to connect with viewers from all around the world. If this tale touched your heart, please hit that like button. It really helps us reach more people who might need to hear these messages of hope and connection. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content like this. We share uplifting narratives that remind us what truly matters in life. And here's something special. Share this video with your friends and family. Spread a little kindness today, and help raise awareness about the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. You never know whose day you might brighten, or whose heart you might heal. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. Until next time, keep believing in the magic of human connection.